We are here and we are strong. Let's be counted as we move on. Make a difference, change lives as we tell our different stories. We are capable, beautiful. We are born to do great things. We're unstoppable, incredible, 'cause we're differently abled, differently.
Hello there and a warm welcome on Able Differently. It's been 1 year since the coronavirus disease pandemic was reported in Kenya. So many changes have had to take place in order for survival of so many of us, and this has really affected every sector of life. Today, we look at how people are coping up with the pandemic and coming up with solutions to ensure that they're still breathing. I'm your host, Theuri. Karibu.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
As a country is still grappling to come up with ways of easing the COVID-19 burden. With the introduction of the COVID-19 vaccine, so many Kenyans have taken the initiative of taking the jab. However, there's still much to be done, as Bernard narrates what led to his brother's demise. Take a look at that story.
Since the time COVID-19 hit the world, things changed drastically, and especially for persons with disabilities. Mr. Francis Anyenda of the National Council of Persons with Disabilities spoke to us about the impact the pandemic has had on persons with disabilities.
One is that what was obvious that cut across was the loss of income by many, including persons with disabilities. Now you realize that a number of them are engaged in small businesses, especially small trade kind of businesses.
Yeah.
And that meant that with the COVID protocol that were provided by the government beginning last year, most of them were rendered jobless. Most of them could not be able to earn any income. Most of them now are forced to stay in the house without food, without so many other things. You'll find that a number of them who relied on other people to help them in navigating, especially enhancing their mobility. For example, the blind, who required somebody to guide them across the road and so on, and those ones on wheelchairs. Because of the issue of social and physical distances, then you find that most of them had challenges moving around. Of course, there were other measures, like, for example, regular hand washing. When you tell somebody who is on crutches or on a wheelchair, regular hand washing, without necessarily also considering the fact that there is the issue of the wheelchair, which needs also to be sanitized, then I don't think you are able to, that person will be able to protect himself or herself from contracting COVID.
In light of the prevailing pandemic, the Council responded by working closely with their county officials to identify institutions and individuals in dire need and provided them with necessary items to help in the fight and prevention of COVID-19.
And some of the measures we took was, one is that we were able to pay them some cash transfer. The government was able to release some money, about $500 million, which we paid as cash transfer to those with disabilities. Especially, the ones that had lost some income, or those that are affected in terms of engaging themselves in some economic, some income activity. And we were able to give them, each was getting about 6,000 shillings as a one-off payment. Then in addition to that, we also have a program under what we call Inua Jamii program, where we provide cash transfer to those with severe disabilities. Now, this is a special group, not from the other one that I've just mentioned. The severe disabilities are those ones that require care, 24/7 care, because they cannot be able to move around, they cannot be able to do so many other things that they can't live independent on their own. So they'll need somebody to take care of them. And these ones, we have a program under Inua Jamii where we give them each month 2,000 Kenya shillings. And we're able to continue giving them that money. And through that, they're able to cushion themselves from the vagaries of COVID-19.
Persons with disabilities are more likely to contract COVID-19 due to pre-existing conditions. A family in Buruburu that got several of its members infected by COVID-19 spoke to us about the experience and the unfortunate and untimely death of one of their loved ones who fought bravely for 2.5 months but succumbed.
So when Robert was admitted to Mater Hospital in critical care, he spent a month in COVID ICU, basically trying to fight to regain his health and turn COVID negative, where he was on a mechanical ventilator. Our experience every time we visited Robert, we felt like his situation was actually made worse because he had a disability. Robert had a curvature of the chest and the spine, and the doctors told us that it was even very difficult for them to put the ventilator on him. When Robert finally became COVID negative, because they test you every day until you get negative, he was moved to a general ICU, but he was still on life support. And that is when we started noticing that there was a big challenge on the hospital side to actually give him the treatment that he needed.
The National Council of Persons with Disabilities is yet to make a breakthrough as it continues to initiate talks with several stakeholders on matters testing, vaccination and treatment of persons with disabilities infected by COVID-19 and related complications.
We were saying that we were requesting that if it's possible that persons with disabilities be considered as part of the frontline people, in addition to those ones who are over 58 years. But as I said, this has not yet achieved anything so far. We are trying to work out with the ministry. We're trying to follow up the matter so that we are able to get our clients, persons with disabilities, to be able to be considered for the vaccination. The other thing is that you realize that as we talk now, there's a scarcity of the vaccinations, and therefore this makes it also a challenge by the Ministry of Health. We are just hoping that in the next consignment that we are expecting, the government is expecting, the 10 million and the rest that we have had through the budgetary allocation. We are hoping that through that we shall be able to push and to ensure that as the government is vaccinating, then persons with disabilities must be considered as among the key people to be vaccinated.
Bernard Chiira, a younger brother to the late KNAD, spoke fondly of his elder brother, remembering KNAD as a great man and deeply saddened at the great loss it is to the family, friends, and society at large.
Robert was my elder brother, 2 years older than me, and he lived such a meaningful and purposeful life. He had so much character. He had a great mix of character and personality in this family. He's probably one of the most talented siblings. He, despite having the struggles that persons with disability go through to access literally everything from healthcare to education, Robert managed to become a law graduate. He also had a passion for the game of chess, and he actually ended up being a national chess champion. He represented Kenya on a number of tournaments. Robert also loved music. He was always singing in the church choir, and generally had a great taste of music and sound. He was always the one setting sound up for us when we had occasions. So we remember him. We have great memories of him.
Robert's recovery and treatment became such a challenge due to the nature of his disability. His doctor, who was convinced of this, mentioned as much to the point of assuring the family that had it not been for the pre-existing condition, the story would have ended very differently.
What doctors commonly refer to as sepsis. That means these are very serious bacterial infections that you can only get in the hospital, nowhere else. And that had a big impact on his recovery. It slowed it down. Robert fought gallantly, he fought hard, and he was on and off the ventilator. At some point we could even talk to him, and unfortunately his oxygen levels never stabilized. He was put back on the tube around 3 times. So we feel that our healthcare system also needs to improve on the care of persons with disability, because we are actually told that what triggered Robert's death was cardiopulmonary failure, so failure of the heart and the lungs as a result of this sepsis.
Robert had won the hearts of many, among them soulmates who grew up together with him. Mathew was still in disbelief of what had happened, but gathered strength to say something about his childhood friend as he called upon well-wishers to help the family in settling hospital bills.
We've been second mates from 1993. He's a very nice person, enjoyable to be with. I've noticed I've lost somebody very important in my life, and to all the well-wishers, please stand with all PWDs. Actually, as at this time, as we mourn KNAD, please support with medical bills, and please use hashtag Bring KNAD to his final rest.
Ked's nephew, Leon Wanyeki, had the privilege of mastering the game of chess from the master himself, but more importantly, are the memories of uncle and nephew that made their friendship special.
He was a great person. He taught me how to play a game called chess. In 2020, he bought me a chess, and I'm here to ask you to help us raise Uncle Robert's bill.
Despite the fact that this family had a National Health Insurance Fund cover, NHIF, it could not pay a dime for treatment, as NHIF does not cover COVID-related conditions, and the burden of the bill that is accumulated up to now is left for the family to settle.
Unfortunately, our National Health Insurance Fund, which is our universal healthcare program in this country, is not covering COVID-related hospitalization. This is unfortunate because for most persons with disabilities, the only form of insurance that they could even possibly afford is the NHIF. A lot of private insurance companies do not insure persons with disabilities because of pre-existing conditions. So the fact that NHIF is not covering COVID-related treatment is exposing and leaving millions of vulnerable people in a dire situation.
The unforeseen death of the late Robert Ndirangu left a huge gap in the heart of a man who invested fully to loving, caring, providing, and being there as a father to see his son achieve so much in life. And it was such an honor for Mr. Wanyeki to be called father by such a legend.
But Ndirangu was a very humble person, and also very hard-working academically, and in all the schools he went, from Joytown to Aquinas High School, up to Mount Kenya University, and up to Okwach, where he did his pupillage. He excelled. He did very well. He was very, very hard-working person, and I am very, very proud of him.
Joseph Wanyeki was present in his son's life when things were looking up and down. He made frequent visits to the hospital with the hope of escorting his son back home sooner than later. But that was not the case, and now he not only mourns the loss of a son, but also the fact that he cannot bury his son unless he clears the outstanding bill left behind.
Of the long stay in the hospital, he left a very huge bill. The gross bill was about 10 million, but we reduced it by 2.1 million from well-wishers, my children, and also our friends. We reduced it by 2.1 million. And later on, through fundraisers, we reduced it by a further 1.3 million. So now the outstanding bill is about 6.6 million. And this bill is quite overwhelming for an ordinary family like mine. And so we have no resources to pay this bill because I am a pensioner. I've been a pensioner for 18 years since I left working, and we don't have other sources of income. So we have no financial capacity to pay this bill, and therefore we appeal to more well-wishers to help us pay this bill. Even organizations that take care of people with disabilities, we ask them, we appeal to them to help us pay this bill so that Mater Hospital will be able to release our body, because up to now it's not released, it is still within the hospital. So we want to thank all those who have actually helped us so far in the fundraisers, and we ask God to bless them and refund to them fourfold, fivefold. So that's all I would like to say. Well-wishers, people who can help us to pay this bill so that we can get the body from Mater Hospital, we really appreciate their help.
Let's catch a breather, but we'll be right back shortly, so don't go too far.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently. 'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
The Kenya Christian School for the Deaf gave out transparent face masks to Nyagweso School for the Deaf in Homa Bay County. Take a look.
The deaf use gestures and read lips during communication. With the requirement to wear a face mask during the COVID-19 pandemic, communication becomes impaired to them.
When I'm walking and a hearing person has his face mask on, if he attempts to speak to me, I wouldn't understand what he speaks about because I can't lip read. If I go to the supermarket to purchase maybe food items and I happen to meet a person or sitting there, maybe the counter, I've given everything, so the person will ask me something. What is your balance? How many shillings do you need from me? How much is this? He's speaking using his mouth. I can't understand. He's covered with the face masks. It becomes completely difficult for people like me who rely on lip reading. So there's a huge barrier in terms of communication.
The Kenya Christian School for the Deaf came up with transparent face masks for ease of communication, and they have been distributing them across the country.
We all know the dangers of COVID-19. How COVID-19 is really killing people outside here. And therefore, as individuals, we need to protect ourselves by following the rules. And one of the rules is having our mask on all the time. And because we have two of these, please, when you wash one, put on one. Because this one is good compared to the other ones because of the window. It allows easy communication. We are happy as grade 3 learners because we've been given new masks a mask that is very nice. I believe they are happy. Are they happy? Are they happy? Yeah. This mask is really very different. It's different from the other mask, different from the what I am having. Because first of all, the design is okay, how it is made is okay, and then in the middle there is a window. There is a middle, and I am able to see all the lips. I'm able to see all their lips, which is not possible with the ones that I'm wearing.
Let's take a look at the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities.
The rights of persons with disabilities are safeguarded by the Disability Act of 2003 and also the Kenyan Constitution. At an international level, the rights of persons with disabilities, including access to healthcare, are safeguarded under the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, that every party state of the UN automatically is required to implement those rights. That includes Kenya. So I would urge the Ministry of Health and the Kenyan government. We just had the budget read out the other day, and I think there was 14 billion or so set aside for COVID response in the country. We need to ensure that that money, a portion of it, goes into safeguarding persons with disabilities during this pandemic.
Persons with disabilities are at a higher risk of getting COVID-19, and this is because some of the precautions set are a bit of a challenge for them to achieve. For instance, you might find that a person with disability needs assistance most times. Therefore, they are not able to maintain social distance. It's therefore advised that they take extra measures to ensure that they are okay. Also, it's advisable for them and their caregivers to make sure they visit the hospital once they feel they have some symptoms that might indicate they have COVID-19.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
That's why we come to the end of the show for today, and it's my hope that you're still taking the necessary precautionary measures to help us sail through this pandemic. I've been your host, Theuri. Kwairini.
We are here and we are strong. Let's be counted as we move on. Make a difference, change lives as we tell our different stories. We are capable, beautiful. We are born to do great things. We're unstoppable, incredible, 'cause we're differently abled, differently.